So today we're going to talk about the B word, and of course I'm speaking of body filler. It seems like no other aspect of car restoration causes quite the controversy that body filler does. How can something that is either so good be so bad, or something that's so bad be so helpful? So we decided to take a few minutes to look at what body filler really is, look at what the problems are, and then look at the right way to use it so that it becomes kind of a secret weapon in your arsenal when restoring a car. But first, let's take a look at what body filler is and the history of this stuff. Now, back many years ago, auto manufacturers used to use body solder, which was molten lead, to fill seams between panels as they manufactured cars. And this turned into usage by body shops who were fixing dents and dings. They'd heat up lead and position it on the car and then file and sand it and paint over it, which led to the term lead sled. A lot of your early customs used a lot of lead to actually create new body lines, or they would weld up steel and wireframe structures and then lead over the top of it to create a custom shape. And lead actually works pretty well, but it's not very safe for the people that are using it. Plus it involves some heavy-duty skill. It's kind of a trick to use lead. We still use a synthetic body solder today in our shop when we're recreating those original kind of seams. But lead eventually gave way in the mid-1950s to a polyester-based liquid putty, right? And we know this today as what we call traditional body filler. It's a multi-part compound that comes in a can, and it's a liquid, kind of a paste, and when you spoon it out onto a mixing board and add an activator, it hardens. So when we look at what traditional body filler is comprised of, it's a polyester resin, and then it's a solvent, which is normally like styrene, and then the great majority is talc, just like talcum powder. And this is what gives the filler its body. It's very fine particles of talc, and it's mixed together with a hardener. Typically it's MEK, which is methyl ethyl ketone, which is a pretty nasty solvent, so you want to make sure you handle it properly. But when you mix it in the proper ratio, the MEK reacts with the styrene and the resin, and it creates an exothermic reaction which makes heat, and when this stuff gets hot enough, it solidifies and becomes basically hard plastic. So it's much faster than using the old lead-based body solder. It doesn't require anywhere the skill that the lead-based stuff used, and it's a lasting repair because, as we're finding out, some plastic, lasts forever. There are also various kinds of body filler. Some have different particles added to them, like long or short strand fiberglass for fiberglass repairs or for areas that need extra strength. Some body fillers are metallic, so that they actually have aluminum or ground up iron in them so that they feel and they have the same weight as metal when they're done. And some of the more high-tech stuff even has Kevlar reinforcements in it. Kevlar is the same stuff that's used in bulletproof vests, so this stuff is very, very strong, and it's used to actually fill holes or close up panel gaps. Now, many of us have been burned by body filler because we bought a car that was supposed to be straight and rust-free and a solid either restoration or an unmolested original car, only to find out that it is buried underneath a fortress of plastic body filler. And I think after giving this some considerable thought, I'm not sure that it's the presence of body filler itself that's so bad, but usually a thick coat of body filler is an indicator that the rest of the car's repairs weren't done very well. And what I mean by that is it takes a lot of skill to repair a body in steel so that you don't need very much body filler. And more often than not, people will take the shortcut and find a rusty panel or a panel with a bunch of dents in it and just trowel a bunch of mud over it and sand that down and then sell the car. So the next person gets the experience of finding the body filler starting to crack or peel off because there's rust underneath trying to get out, and eventually you got to redo the whole car. So just the mere sight of all this body filler tends to be a red flag. But in reality, if it's used properly, and when I mean properly, I'm saying used with the right application process, the right mixture, and in the right thickness, body filler can really be the key to making a car look super, super straight. And when you go to a car show and see a car that's mirror laser perfectly straight, you can bet that there's a bunch of body filler underneath the surface. And I'm not saying that it's super, super thick. It could be less than 1/8 of an inch. But that final step of applying body filler and sanding it and priming it is really what you can use to refine the shape of a car to make the sides just glass straight. And some people will say, you know, oh, this car has no body filler in it, but it's razor straight. And what I say to that is, most likely they're lying. Because if you look at the steel underneath, even if you properly repair all the steel, you end up with nicks and little sanding scratches that were the reason the body filler was created. That's why you use this stuff, to fill those little imperfections. Even over, you know, nearly perfect metalwork, you still might need to use this stuff. Now, every once in a while I come across a person who says, you know, my perfectly restored car has no body filler in it. But then you later learn that it doesn't have any body filler in the polyester form that we've been talking about, but it might have 50 coats of surfacing high build primer on it, you know, that the guy sprayed on and sanded off and resprayed and sanded off. So it still has some sort of filler in place, even though it might not be, you know, the mixed up polyester style. So to me, that's kind of the same thing. The manufacturers of the traditional style body filler will tell you that its maximum thickness or film build is either around 1/8 of an inch, in some cases maybe up to 1/4 of an inch, but you don't want to go any thicker than that. And one of the limitations is that the talc component will actually absorb moisture. So it's important to keep that in mind when repairing a panel. If you spread this stuff on, you don't want to get it wet. And this is also very important to keep in mind when you go to prime it later on, because it will absorb that primer. Now, when we're speaking of polyester type body fillers, there's a couple different styles. We've been talking about the traditional style, which is the resin and talc based, and there are some new premium style body fillers. We've been using one from Evercoat called Quantum1, and there's a bunch of differences, but maybe the biggest is that the particle size on the premium body filler is much, much smaller than the traditional. And this becomes important because although both of these types of body filler are designed to apply straight over bare steel, the traditional talc-based large particle style body filler does not provide an adequate corrosion resistance because it absorbs moisture like crazy. It's basically like putting a sponge on the car. So you have to make sure that you prep the panel properly and apply this stuff, and then top coat it with protective barriers so that it doesn't just drink in moisture and start to rust. The new style, like this Quantum1, has a much smaller particle size, and it actually passes the 500-hour salt spray requirement, so you can put it over bare steel and not have to worry about breaking the corrosion barrier, because it is just as strong as the panel was new.